welcome back, loyal fight fans. This is another epic round of boxing. You know me, I am your humble host, Tummy Tom. The first thing I'm going to ask of you is to please give the thumbs up for this video. I work long and hard, being very involved in the sport of boxing, coming to you regularly, once a week, if not twice or more. And please hit the subscribe button. I mean, if you haven't already, I don't know what on earth we're doing here. But all the silly jokes aside, we have a big weekend in boxing to recap first off. There will be a little bit of a holiday break as far as fights go coming up, but we do have one more to touch on along with all these recaps. And we're also going to still be coming to you once a week and filling in that holiday time with a new episode of Unknown to Casuals. We're also going to do a full year recap on, what was, in my opinion, the fight of the year and what was the knockout of the year. All that good stuff. This won't go away on my computer, so that's nice. All right. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to recap the Josh Warrington versus Luis Alberto Lopez fight that took place in Josh Warrington's backyard. No way. In Leeds, England, literally where he's from. And we actually had some fair judging. Some judging that no matter which way you went, there actually wasn't, outrageous scorecards taking place here. And I, for one, just can't believe it. But it was a great fight. So I love to jump on this podcast and first off just tell you, I told you so. Luis Alberto Lopez, yet again an underdog, and pulls off a great performance. He has been winning fights as an underdog for so long now, and you just can't doubt the guy anymore. That's why we did the little special that we did and talk specifically about this, kind of going over his last 5 fights that he has had. He did not disappoint here. We put some money on him and won. So I'm very happy about that. That also being part of the reason that I was a little bit scared, watching this fight. I won't lie, because first off, Luis Alberto Lopez, I love the guy, but he's got a scary style to watch. And that doesn't mean just what he's doing, because he is very vicious with his intent in there. He kind of likes to put everything behind all those shots, and we'll retouch on that as a part of what was a problem later in the fight a little bit almost. But what I mean by it's scary to watch him, if you're a fan of him, and you know anything about boxing or what you're watching there, he puts his chin up in the air. He'll stand there and he'll throw winging hooks that don't start even from here and are short and tight. They start way back here behind his back, and he wings them. And while he does it, he's waiting to wing the other hand. He don't even keep a hand up at a time to defend himself in any sort of responsible manner. But the guy is very unorthodox, man. It's part of his thing, I guess. It's that punching style that looks scary, like, oh my God, you're going to get countered so clean and just slept at any minute. He makes it work for him, man. Because he does have a good chin on him, so he can take some shots, but that's just a dangerous style. And then he'll leap in with body shots like that are winging these hooks to the body from way behind his back and leaping forward, 3-4 feet. He's a pleasure to watch, but it was scary because we had some money on him. Also, what was scary and what I just couldn't believe is that we ended up having some fair judging there. I mean, this is in England, which is really, it's just kind of notoriously, they're going to back their guy as much as they can. And basically, Luis Alberto, Josh Warrington, I basically agreed with Tony Bellew's scorecard. Almost exactly. You might interchange around, but I actually would have scored this fight possibly a draw, right? Which one judge did, official judge, and Tony Bellew's scorecard was a draw. And I thought that's pretty accurate. And then if you wouldn't have gone with that, I did think that Luis Alberto Lopez, I would have a hard time giving Josh Warrington an extra round besides the 3 in between in the first half of the fight. I think he won round 2. And I'm forgetting, he won a couple of other rounds there. And then basically, Luis Alberto Lopez, though, was running away from the fight. Running away with the fight. Sorry. And basically, it seemed safe enough. Because in my mind, he had a clear lead. If you knew what you were looking at, that's just the truth. But again, the way that things usually will play out, especially in a guy's hometown like this, is whether it's here or across the pond, so to speak, is, that they're going to want to give it to their guy if they can, right? So even if you have some responsible judging, they're going to want to do that if they can. And I thought you need to make this a little bit wide and then hope still that there's not some outrageous robbery going on. But you need to make this a little wide, and he was, because at one point, he was up 3 rounds, almost 4 rounds or something. Now, in the last few rounds of the fight, he let Josh Warrington, he got tired. He got tired, and the reason he got tired is from throwing everything he had behind every shot for the whole first 7 rounds of this fight. And then he gave Josh Warrington about 3 rounds right in a row towards the end of that fight, which could have tied it up 6-6, And it's just 1 round's gone. I go, oh, no, he's getting tired, And he was, because he wasn't taking a round off. He lost. You could see that he was a little bit of a different fighter there. Also, this is the first time that Luis Alberto Lopez tasted the 11th and 12th rounds of a fight. So usually he's only made it even into the final 10th round like a time or 2. Usually he'll get guys out of there earlier even, or like the Flores fight. He was just mopping the floor with Flores. But even that fight was like it went 10 rounds. He's never been 12 rounds, so that definitely showed. And I think he'll learn something from this as well, that it's good and it suits his style, that he throws very hard and aggressive and puts a lot behind most of his punches. He doesn't touch and then throw a good one. Most of pretty much any punch that he is throwing, he has some real intent behind it. But I think that he'll learn from this, and I think that, you basically, it was good that he won, and the judges scoring that, 7-5 and 7-5, and then one scoring it a draw, I thought was all good judging and all acceptable, honestly. So that's pretty much where I laid at too. So that was refreshing to see, especially for where the fight was taking place. Now, we also had Terence Crawford, just cruising to victory against David Avanesian. There was a couple fights like this, though, but, the Inoue Butler, we'll touch on, that was like this. So you just have such a difference in the level of competition between the two fighters that it's a little bit outrageous. So we knew that, at least I did, and on this podcast, a lot of people that follow this podcast, we kind of knew that, right? That Terence Crawford, there wouldn't be a hope or a prayer for David Avanesian. Of course, this toxic kind of Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fandom always seems to reign through. So I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, Terence was getting touched up all night before." No, just get out of here. And I'm a big Errol Spence fan. Okay, if they ever fought, I'd go for Spence. But that just doesn't mean that we don't, we're just going to throw reality to the side. It was a good performance from Terence Crawford. He did what he was supposed to, because he didn't just win. He didn't look bad at all at any point in that fight. And he definitely, slept Avanesian, was not going to get up from that shot. So that was good. Let's talk Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. That took place on ESPN Plus, okay, on ESPN Top Rank. This fight showed a lot to me, personally. And I think it showed a lot to a lot of people from the things that I've heard people saying about this fight, other fighters saying about this fight. When you watch this, now Sandor Martin is no slouch. Sure, he beat Mikey Garcia up, but that was a lesser version of Mikey Garcia, so you knew the guy could box, but you didn't know how to judge that performance probably so good as far as was that more Sandor Martin's doing or Mikey Garcia's fall from grace. But I erred on the side of Sandor Martin. It was a very good is a very good fighter. So Vasily Lomachenko, fighting Teofimo Lopez back in the day, Lopez did look great. Now here's a problem. I'm just gonna state this, okay? He earned that fight and he should have won it. In my mind, he gave up 5 rounds straight, and I believe this reflected on most people's scorecards. It's just that people tend to forget about things like this, but he gave up 5 rounds straight towards the end of that fight after dominating the first half. And then the fight was close. And basically, if he hadn't come out and won that 12th and final round, the fight could have been scored a draw. Also, here's a hipster take for you. You might be able to have edged Lomachenko in round 2, which would have won him the fight. So the fight was close. A lot of people walked away with that just so impressed that he pulled off the underdog win. I was impressed as well. But that they just forgot about it. And they go, wow, he just destroyed this guy. I never saw that. I saw a guy fighting to his absolute, best of his abilities and pulling himself together for the fight of his life on that night and getting the job done, and kudos to him. That is what I saw. I am not like a lot of people in the world that watched that Lopez-Lomachenko fight and thought, Teofimo Lopez, a pound-for-pound talent, nobody could beat. I never saw anything like that. I thought that a lot of that fight had to do with Lomachenko. Whether his shoulder was injured or not doesn't matter. If it wasn't, he could be lying, and that's fine too. But for some reason, was not throwing punches for the first half of that fight. He threw, not landed, but threw only about 5 to 7 punches per round for the first 6 rounds of that fight. That's just a fact. So I never saw what others did with that fight. And then, of course, he goes on from there and he loses to George Kambosos in brutal fashion and getting dropped. He did come back and drop Kambosos later in the fight. Just a very good fight, but he lost to a guy he was never supposed to lose to. George Kambosos was about as hefty as an underdog in that fight as you will normally see in boxing. And then he went on from there to just be off for a long time and make a comeback against Pedro Campa, and who is just basically that's a gimme fight to come back to. He did his job there, but he didn't look phenomenal. If you looked at him and his form and how he looked, how fast he was, his power, so on and so forth, he just kind of got the job done in that fight. And then he goes on to fight Sandor Martin now, and he's up at 140 pounds for these last 2 fights. He gets dropped in the second round by Sandor Martin. Teofimo Lopez is not the boxer with the potential that a lot of people thought that he was. I stand by that. I believe that more and more. I believed that he was very good, but not as good as people said after watching him fight Lomachenko in a close fight, not a fight where he destroyed him and he's a pound for pound, a close fight in which it was more strange that Lomachenko was only attempting even to throw, not land, but attempting to throw 7 to 5 punches around. And then took 5 consecutive rounds back to back to back to back once he started letting his hands go. And if Teofimo Lopez didn't win the 12th round in that Lomachenko fight, the fight would handedly be a draw, if not going either way from that point. It would, bare minimum, have had to have been a draw. So I don't remember that fight the same way that a lot of others do, and I never had the same kind of impression about him being a world beater even after that. Then he loses the Kambosos fight, and then he takes all the time off in the Pedro Campa fight, just getting the job done, right? And then here he is fighting Sandor Martin, and he comes in a little fast and chasing him and gets dropped in the second round. You know, his dad's his trainer. I don't really care for his dad, to be honest. When I look at his dad and the way he talks and the way he is, I don't think that he's the most intelligent of boxing minds. That is not an opinion that I share at all. And I think that he needs a new trainer, because I think that Teofimo Lopez is very athletic, and I think that it's possible his power did not carry up from 135 like when he destroyed Rockhard Mason Menard and when he destroyed Richard Comey with one punch. I think it's fair to say his power did not move up in weight to 140 where he is now, and his speed is a bit less now. There's a few other things. He didn't move his head, right? And he just overall did not look as sharp at all. You know, Teofimo Lopez got blessed with a 97-92 improper bullshit scorecard, of course, from a judge again. There's usually just gotta be one. That's why we were so amazed that there were fair scorecards all throughout with the Lopez versus Warrington fight, because you just barely ever get that, and you didn't hear again. And the split decision nonetheless, because one of the judges did give it to Sandor Martin. Sandor dropping him in that second round. You know, Regis Prograis said something about Teofimo Lopez. You know, first thing, too much pressure, and he is breaking mentally. And then he literally says, but all jokes aside, I hope Teo is okay. Boxing is a tough and lonely sport, and it can be very taxing mentally. I think he needs some changes in his personal life. I agree with that a lot, 100%. I think that Teofimo Lopez will never be a world beater, but that he could be better than this and could be taught better than rushing in. Also, his dad saying after the fight, after they were blessed with a controversial decision, saying he was running all night. Sandor Martin is not running. Sandor Martin is a boxer, so he was moving. He was moving, and he dropped your son while backing up and hitting him with a good counter while he's running into him, something that you are not supposed to do in a reckless manner. Because that is the sport of boxing. What in the fuck are we talking about here? Also, several times this fight of putting Teofimo on the ropes. Several times this fight of standing and trading for a bit before he starts getting on his bicycle and moving again. This is boxing. And then you haven't prepared your son, who did not have a good performance and live up to his name in this fight, whether you think he should have won or not. If you think it's fair that he should have edged this fight, that's okay, and I can see that. I don't have a problem with that. But this argument that I'm making and the things that I am telling you now are not as much an argument about who won that fight, because it was a close fight, as much as it is about where is Teofimo Lopez right now. Where does he stand? Can he get better? Because I'm not sure that he will. We're not seeing good progression. And you want to put him in there with Regis Prograis, I'm 100% putting money on Regis Prograis if they fight at this point, with the way that things look. Absolutely. I think these are two people going in two separate directions, 100%. Inoue took on Inoue taking on Butler to become a unified, undisputed champion at bantamweight. Naoya Inoue, okay, in his sixth pro fight, he won his first world title in his sixth pro fight. By his eighth pro fight, he won his second world title. By his 11th pro fight, he's a 3-division world champion. Now he's undisputed world champion at bantamweight. He is 24-0 with 21 vicious knockouts, and he has been in the top 10 pound-for-pound rankings for some time already. The question is, where does he stand now that he is undisputed, and also being that he had the fight of the year, possibly a fight of the decade with Nonito Donaire back in the day, in which his orbital bone was broken, his face was broken early in that fight, fought all the way through, showed his boxing acumen in that fight, just absolutely his all-around talent and heart and will and determination. Then he takes the rematch to show that not only will I beat this absolute legend again, but I'll prove that he never belonged in the ring with me in the first place. And he knocks him out in the second round, super fast, super early, super uncompetitive. Where do you have Naoya Inoue in your pound-for-pound rankings? Because we can all differ a bit. The guys at the top. Is it Terrence Crawford? Is it Errol Spence? Is it Naoya Inoue? Kind of interchanging those things. If you'd like to put Usyk up there, that's acceptable as well. But I think that whether you have Naoya Inoue as number 1 or number 2 or whatever you have him, I'm going to judge your top 10 pound-for-pound list if Naoya Inoue isn't bare minimum number 3 pound for pound in the world right now. And I think it's acceptable to have the guy as a number 2 or a number 1. He's got to be top 3 at this point. Sure, Butler never stood a chance, and the odds showed that. But Naoya Inoue is just doing his job. And here's the difference when we talked about Teofimo Lopez's father saying Sandor Martin was running during that fight. No, he wasn't, and he dropped your son, and he boxed well. If you want to talk about running and being frustrating because you're not trying to fight and you're only trying to survive, that is what Butler did in this fight against Inoue. And Inoue, frustrated as he was, fighting a guy that he could have easily got out of there in the first 2-3 rounds, had the guy been trying to throw more than one punch at a time, he stayed composed, he went to the body, he taunted, he did what he had to do and did not make mistakes, and showed why he is a top 5, top 3 pound-for-pound talent in the sport of boxing. And then he got his little opening and his chance when he cornered Butler in the 10th round, and he unloaded on him and put him away instantly. That is the difference between these different fights that took place over the weekend. Terrence Crawford, who took place over the weekend, fighting David Avanesian. If you want to have him as your pound-for-pound number 1, that's acceptable. You want to have him as number 2. If Inoue is not within your top 3 pound-for-pound, your list is unacceptable, and it is not to be respected. And that's just point-blank period at this point. The monster from Japan. He does monstrous things truly. He only goes in there to not win, but to absolutely dominate and run through his competition in the most vicious sense imaginable. And then we have Frank Martin coming up for fights that are taking place this weekend. There is a couple, but we're going to just touch on the Frank Martin versus Michel Rivera. Rivera is a good fighter. Both these guys are undefeated. This should be a really, really good fight. I'm taking Frank Martin here, of course, because though this should be fun to watch, somebody's has got to go. You have to see the difference between talents here. And Frank Martin, kind of getting co-signed by Errol Spence and having, Errol Spence saying this kid's legit. And that's not by chance. Errol Spence, a quiet type, a reserved type of talker, right? He doesn't talk much. He's not a guy that even enjoys doing interviews at all. He doesn't trash talk. People tell him all the trash talk going on about him, and he is just very kind of calm, cool, collected, reserved in that sense. So I really don't think that it's a mistake or by chance that he has endorsed Frank Martin in such a way as he has. And I think we're going to see that play out. I think that Frank Martin's actually like a talent that will be a threat in the division. We need to see him. This is a good fight for him where he's at in his career right now. I love it. Let's see how he looks. And he needs a few other tests because I imagine he comes out of this one looking quite well. And then we'll need to see him tested a little bit more before he gets the best kind of names in his division. But bare minimum, even right now, I think that he can hang with kind of any of these guys, whether he'd win or lose the fight. I think that he's competitive in there with anybody and that he can hang already. And I want to see him fight a few more times here. I'm going to be taking a close look at Frank Martin in this fight to kind of judge what I could imagine his capabilities being and who he could beat in a stacked division that he is in. But until next time, loyal fight fans, this has been fun. As I said, we'll give you the Unknown to Casuals episode coming up later as there won't be fights for the holidays. And we'll also give you a end of year, full year recap on the show. Possibly even I'll be going to New York, back to New York where I'm from with my daughter to visit some family. I'll be seeing my cousin out there who actually does an MMA show. Possibly do a little in-person collab episode. I'm trying to get him on board with that because that would be very cool and something I'd like to do. But either way, we're going to fill your time on this channel. So if others are not putting up new episodes or talking boxing, always find your way back here to the greatest boxing channel on YouTube, short of Boxing Gems, which is very highly respectable. But we stay in our own lanes here, and I'll be filling you with content over the holiday period here. Stay loyal, fight fans.